6:05. Thank you everybody for coming. We're gonna start with public comment. I'd like to limit that to 2 minutes apiece. And just before we get
Before we start with
Huh?
that, can I ask something? Can you hear me, Beth?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That was not me. I don't know. So we don't have any additions or deletions. And one of the things I was hoping to add would be a roll call. Just because then this way we know who's on Zoom and who is in the audience for people who are on Zoom. Would that be reasonable before we go into public comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to start with something else before we got into additions and deletions.
Oh, sure. That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Just to be clear that this meeting, originally there was no Zoom for it. And that was at the behest of the prior superintendent, Bill Anton, because he was gonna be done and our incoming superintendent, Bob Tebow, was gonna be on vacation. Obviously, we heard from the public that that was not okay, and so we made amends to make that happen. So just we're clear, there was nothing that the board was doing to circumvent democracy. It was at the behest of Bill Anton, who I've worked for the last 7 years, so. So moving on, additions and deletions to the agenda. Go ahead, Abby, did you have something?
Yes, if we could add a roll call so that we can make clear on the recording those who are in attendance of the meeting. Like, so the people who are listed in the audience with you there in person, if there is anyone.
Yeah, do you each want to just start here and we'll go around?
Kyle Grapp.
Emily Goyette.
Daniel Corby.
Kathy Scott.
Ronald Boslin.
Gail Wyman.
Sarah Peck.
Betsy Huffman.
Ginny Crittenden.
Dave Crittenden.
John Began.
Sue Puri.
Russ Cumming.
Erin Kehoe.
Andrew Blanchard.
Bridget Blanchard,
James Lawler.
is that everybody? And then you have everybody on Zoom?
Does Rory, is Rory on Zoom or is she?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay, so you have the participant list on Zoom. You're good?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. And then to add under, I don't know if we want to put it on new business or not, but just like the landscaping and tree removal. That's all, and that'll be quick.
Okay.
Okay, unless there's anything. Yep, unless there's anything else, we can go to public comment. And again, it's a 2 minute time frame just because we have a lot to get through. If everybody's okay with that. And Abby, Rory, anybody else, if you can see hands up that I don't see, please feel free, or Mr. Tebow, please let me know. By the way, I should introduce Bob Tebow is our incoming superintendent, who's been principal at Leland Gray for years, and he is taking the helm. So thanks, Bob, for being here with us.
Is the superintendent's report.
So no public comment?
Yeah, I have a public comment.
Yep, okay.
Russ Cumming speaking.
There she is.
I've read the minutes that were submitted by the secretary from January up until just before June 8th. And there are a number of errors in it, incomplete sentences, confusing information. And I would like to either have an opportunity to talk with the clerk and correct some of the things that she's written, which are incorrect, and delay approving the minutes.
Well, we have approval of minutes under old business, so we are gonna get to that.
Right.
Anybody else? It seemed like there was another hand in the back. No?
I had a question on the hiring, but it's in the new business.
Okay.
So, that was my question.
Yep, yeah, that'll definitely be part of the agenda. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to
Wait,
correspondence.
actually, can I say something? I can't find my hand raised.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to speak for a moment just to the public. It's kind of a hard conversation, but a lot of people know that I'm not returning to Windham next year. I'm going to Leland and Gray. I'll start my video, so I'm here. And I just wanted to reach out and have a conversation about why that happened. Because it seems to be that there's information out there that isn't totally accurate. I knew I wasn't coming back when the school budget couldn't include my position as a full-time position. It was only part-time. So that was the original thought process behind that. But I think that as the school year progressed, I think it's very important for me to tell the community in Windham how hard it was to be an employee in Windham, because I don't think that that's something that we are now in a position where we don't have a staff. We've turned over everyone that we had at one point. And it sort of has come out recently that the reason is because that people are petitioning to close the school is why this is happening. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand that it's not because people are petitioning to close the school. I think it's because we've created a culture in Windham that is very hard to work in. It's a very toxic culture to be a part of. Yes, there are wonderful people in the community. We've talked about the volunteers. I've met some very lovely people that I see in the audience that did step up when we were in a difficult situation. And I do appreciate that. But I think that we get into a loop in Windham of pointing a finger at somebody else. And we often say that it's because these folks over here are doing this or these folks over here are doing this. And I can tell you with confidence that it's the whole big picture. We were put in a situation that was really difficult and we got through it. And the staff worked really, really hard and we felt really broken by the end of the school year. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I've worked in a lot of challenging work environments. But often we think it's because there's people that don't like the school. There are also people that love the school that are just as detrimental to that culture and to that environment. And I think that the position that we're in now, that's really important to acknowledge. My kids ask me every day who their teacher is going to be in the fall, and I don't have an answer for them. And that's really hard. And I think that we as a community have put ourselves in this position. And as we continue this conversation, it can't be about what the person next to us is doing or this person said this and it was wrong. It's as a whole, we have created an environment that we now are wondering if we're going to have an equitable education for our kids. So it's very important to me to just put that out there, that I think that the town itself needs to recognize what we've all done. It's not one group of people that has done this. It's been all of us together that have made this very, very difficult. And we now don't have, my understanding as of right now, Bob may share different information. We don't have a staff, and that's not okay.
Okay.
That's it. My 2 minutes is probably up.
We'll be discussing it further, Bridget, under new business and an update on hiring, if that works for you. Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
I did see, I think I saw Crystal Corriveau's hand was up before. For public comment, I might be wrong.
I was just making sure you got my email about the garbage.
Yes, I did get your email about the garbage. I was gonna include that in correspondence. Okay, unless there's anybody else, we're gonna move on to correspondence, starting with Aaron Kehoe's. Oh, sorry, yep.
It's okay. This question's for Bridget. Can you go into detail about what was difficult when you were at the school? Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Can we add that?
Order, public comment is for public comment. So we don't typically would take questions during public comment, but things I think, as Beth had just said, are going to be addressed a little bit later. But I think you guys all know Bridget too. So if there's more information, you can ask her.
I was just hoping we could get through what's on the agenda, the correspondence, the old business, going through the minutes and the pay orders, and then under new business, there is a discussion on update on hiring, which I was hoping, Bob, do you think that that's reasonable?
Yeah, I can give you an update when we get there if you want.
Okay, so is that all right, Bridget? Sure. Okay. Great, so correspondence, there's a letter submitted by Erin Kehoe. Did you want me to read this letter, Erin?
Yes, you can read it.
Okay. Please note this to be public correspondence, and I'll get it to you, Erin, or Rory. To the Windham School Board, after the April 11th meeting and pondering about the conversation that happened with Lee Marinoff, owner of Meadowsby Farm, I am really upset that she singled out my child using my name and beginning to say my daughter's name in a meeting was upsetting. Discussing what I allowed my child to attend or not attend in a school setting is for me alone to announce. I feel this program should not be happening at Windham, and this is why I do not send my child there. After interrupting and correcting the issue I was made fun of at the end of her statement, I feel that this is very inappropriate for any program that is run at the school. As I am sensitive to my daughter's well-being, especially after what happened to my stepdaughter on the merger vote and how some of the children were retaliated against, I feel that this is a slippery slope and will happen again. I do, however, understand that the program will continue for the remainder of the year, but I feel that this program should be kept there and they should not be allowed in the school. This is unacceptable. I guess I'm going on to the next letter, which was Crystal Corriveau. Crystal, I don't have a letter. I have what I have on my phone regarding access control. Did you want me to read that?
I mean, it's up to you if you read it or not, but I think if you kind of touch base on the basics, like there was a lot of volunteers this year, and I went up there 3 or 4 times and noted that the door was unlocked, and that is just not okay. And if we continue to send our children there, then those locks need to be changed. It needs to be key card access so that people are not leaving the doors unlocked.
Okay. I think we've had a conversation with Greg Frost, the buildings and maintenance coordinator, and I think to start with, we're just keeping the door shut. I did get your information from the state Adopt and Access Control and Visitor Management Policy, which is S138, and that's something that we can look at. Greg did send an estimate as to what the cost would be, which is looking into about I think 11 grand to go to key card. So I think for now, until I hear further from Bob, we're just keeping the doors shut, and there's no kids in the school right now. So that's definitely, Bob, did you want to touch base on that?
Yeah, I think the policy that you guys are that's legally required to be adopted will address some of that I think the concerns being raised by. I'm in the middle of trying to deal with another technical issue. I'm sorry. I forgot to deactivate chat, which because it's not captured in the recording, we cannot allow it. And now it's been a while since I played around with chat. Oh, here we go. No, I'm trying to remember how to cancel it. So I can't shut it off. I don't remember how to for now. So if people just please don't use the chat feature. Because it's not part of the official record.
Great. Okay. So don't.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. I see your hand up. Just what Bob was talking about is we will get into the warning of policy, which is F4, access control and visitor management. So that'll be at the end of the agenda. Go ahead, Bridget Corby.
Just to follow up to, since Crystal, because she also addressed that with me, we did circle back with the whole staff to have a conversation about keeping the door shut. Our door does need an extra little pull and having it locked and unlocked. So that has also been addressed with all of the staff that had been, and volunteers that had been in and out of the building.
Great, thank you, Bridget. Crystal, was there anything else I have your letter, it'll be submitted into the minutes, but was there anything else that you wanted to add? I mean, I have it on my phone, so I can submit that to Rory.
No, nothing else. It's just, I brought this up about 4 times now, and, one of my most precious gems is in there. And I know everybody thinks it can't happen there, but it very well could.
Okay. Thank you. Next was from Russ Cumming, complaint about minutes letter. Russ, did you want me to read this?
You don't need to read it, no.
It was regarding the minutes not being delivered in a timely manner. And we will be addressing approval of minutes when we're done with this, but Russ sent out something to acknowledge that that was not satisfactory. And it will be submitted. Rory, I have this also for you to submit into the recording. Okay, so next is old business approval of minutes. We have quite a number of minutes to go through.
Hold on, Beth. I had a letter I requested be entered.
Oh,
as
God, Michael, yes, I'm sorry.
Given its length, I would request that it just get attached with the minutes. It's
We'll
too
attach it.
lengthy to read.
Yep, we can get that. Did all the board members receive that? Was my understanding.
Yes.
Okay,
They did.
Rory has that. So did you want to touch base on that? Michael, did you want to just?
No, it's okay. Just attach it to the minutes. I'm pretty sure most people probably have seen what the content is. Anyway.
Okay. Is there any other, oh, gosh, I receive a lot of correspondence. Sally Newton's corresponded with me about just her love of the school. I can add that, Rory. I think we all got that, actually. Sally's letter, did you get that, Rory and Abby?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be added. If there's anybody else's correspondence, please feel free to say so. There's been a lot.
Question, Beth.
Sure.
So, this is Ron Boslin. So Michael's saying people know the letter. If I could have just a super short version, I mean, I can read it later in the minutes, but
Michael, do you mind?
if he really doesn't want to, then that's the way it goes, but.
I mean, you could just give a summary.
Sure. The short story long is I did some research regarding case law in the state of Vermont to understand how the board was able to decide not to accept the petition. And based on my case law, or the case law that I could found in my interpretation of the case law, it appears that a petition like that is an advisory petition, and the board is not required to accept.
Okay. And then we'll add that. That'll be
Thank you.
for you. Okay, unless there's anything else, we're gonna move on to old business, which is approval of minutes. We have a number of them: January 17th, 24th, and 24th, February 14th and 28th, March 21st, April 11th and 18th, May 16th, June 8th, and I think that's all of them.
So I know Russ had mentioned he'd like to go over that, and I would completely have no problem with that. So if we wanted to, Russ, I don't know what times you have available, or if you could maybe do some editing and send me what you want added or changed, and we can kind of go from there. Does that sound reasonable
To me,
to Russ?
there are changes in every single one that you've submitted that I think we should go over them together, because I know you're not familiar with some of the terms, and some of the things that you've said are just blatantly wrong. So I wanted to help you correct it before they get reviewed and accepted.
So I will happily take your feedback, and so if the rest of the board's okay with that, between now and the next meeting, Russ and I can collaborate, and I will make adjustments as needed and resubmit for approval. We do have half so far, so if that's okay with the board.
That's absolutely fine. I just like to remind everybody that everybody's trying to do their best, and I think blatantly wrong. I think, I saw some spelling mistakes. I saw some, where it said that BCTV was gonna pay for our portion of the town meeting. I think be nice to give each other a little bit of a break and just say that
The
maybe there's
June
a
8th
slip up.
Yeah, the June 8th minutes aren't posted either. I didn't see them
The
anyplace.
June 8th minutes were posted here at the school, they were posted at the town office, and they were
But they're
posted.
not on the internet.
I have to post them in 3 places, and that's where I posted them. I can't control what central office does. I post them where I'm asked to post them. And I'm supposed to post them in 3 places. In all these years, I've been posting the minutes in 3 places with the WCSU, so that's actually 4. So I don't have control over the WCSU website nor the Windham website. I post them where we've posted them for the last, 16 years, which was never at the firehouse.
I might be able to help
Okay.
clarify the central office posting if you'd like.
Yeah, that's great.
Meg Wright, who is Bill's admin assistant, left in early June, and the replacement that's going to be working with me doesn't start till July 1st. So there's been a substitute up there for June, and so they just haven't had access to the website to do that work. So I think they were kind of as a sort of a patch quilt trying to get things up there as best as possible. So that might help explain why there's nothing on the website at this point. Hopefully, once we get in July, Sue and I will have some opportunity to kind of get organized, and we'll get things back up where they belong.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you. And as a reminder as well, we do have BCTV recordings. So if there is question on anyone, they do a great job bulleting underneath the videos. So if there's a particular subject that you're trying to hear, you can go right to it. They do a great job. So the one meeting on June 8th, Russ, we only had the Zoom. So that is not BCTV. But that will be corrected going forward. So thank you.
Sorry, Sue, you had something?
So Bob should know if you pull up the Windham School Board and look for the minutes, it still comes up 404 error.
I have
All right.
no idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna postpone the minutes.
Hey, Beth.
Yes.
So I was getting that 404 error, and Bill had sent the proper link. I can see if I can find it and send it to you guys so it can be sent out to people.
Great, thank you. So moving on to pay orders. We have pay orders 36, 37, 38, 39, 36, 37, and 38 are all payroll and liabilities. 39 is all the basic things that we've been doing, preschool tuition, our fees to the WCSU, Rick Weitzel, which there was it was addressed because there was a double payment, so that came in from Terry Fletcher, and yeah, there's nothing that looked out of the ordinary, so I would be looking for a motion to approve pay orders 36 through 39.
I motion to approve pay orders 36 through 39.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving 36, 37, 38, and 39, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, update on attorney consultation, discussion, possible action. I'm a little confused about that, but, so Abby, do you want to address that?
Sure. So we had a meeting on the 8th where we met with the attorney. We went over pretty much what is within the authority of the board. And the way there were various reasons to reject the petition, but also the understanding of that petition through a different lens and a different attorney's advice, that we, as the board, are not compelled. That's not what we do as far as the decision goes regarding the school. So if people are looking for more information on that, I think Mr. Pelton's article, I would say sums it up, but it's pretty lengthy. So, and if anybody would like access to that, that lays out kind of the understanding and legal backing to why that decision was made by the board.
Okay, I'm confused.
Okay.
The town lawyer said it was acceptable, this lawyer saying it is not?
I don't know that it was the town lawyer, I think it was
It was
the
the school lawyer.
supervisory union lawyer.
The Windham.
The Windham Central Supervisory Union lawyer said it was acceptable.
And then we asked, if,
The original attorney made the recommendation to make all these changes, which we have no need to do. Nor do we have to accept a petition on something that is the authority is already vested with the board. There's very different roles between the electorate and the school board. And we are well within those guidelines to reject the petition. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Was guidance from an attorney that was received, and that is what we were going with.
Does that make sense?
No, if the townspeople submitted a petition,
If I might weigh
And the school
in,
board rejected it.
if I might weigh in on that.
Kathy Scott, yep.
Boards, select boards and school boards, petitions can be presented and the board can decide whether or not to act on them. They are not required to act on them under any circumstances. We learned that in 2015 when we petitioned with regard to allowing Jeremy Turner to come and speak to the select board with regard to the wind turbines. We found that that was not something that the board was required to accept. You can ask them to, and you can have a minimum number of people or a maximum number of people, but that does not mean that the board is required to act on the petition. They can reject it.
Against the voters' wills.
Against the voters' will.
And in
yes.
2017, we were willing to accept it, right? That was the last time the vote happened. So, sorry, in
The last time
2020.
I'm sorry.
The last vote,
Yes.
the last petition was 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about a petition that was 8 years ago.
I know, but I'm saying 2 years ago, the board accepted a petition.
Yes, but it can be, you can accept or not accept. It's not, one doesn't erase the other.
This was based, I don't know how much I can say, Bob, it was at the advice of the lawyer, Bob, I don't wanna get into, I do not wanna get into trouble, cause I know how that's panned out in this town.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is that I don't know nearly enough about any of this yet.
Yeah.
And I'm just joined to try to help you guys through mostly around the hiring stuff. I don't know enough about the legal side of the petitions. I know that Bill informed me that you guys did get 2 different legal opinions and that you went with one of them. And that's literally all I know at this time. So I can't really help you at all. I'm sorry, Beth.
No, it's fine, and I know I can't discuss what was said in executive session, yes?
That is correct.
That is correct, yep.
So I'm at a loss, but I can, whatever.
I think that the reason why the vote was, or the petition was allowed to be brought forward in the past, in 2017, I believe somebody had mentioned, is that the advice, we weren't given the advice that we were given recently.
That's a really good way to put it. It was
That's true.
really legitimate advice.
Talk to 6 attorneys.
That vote was in 2020,
Okay, so 2020, but
and it's
we didn't
still
have
not off the table.
we didn't have the information then. That's all. That's the reason why, it was different situation then versus now.
Thank you, Rory. Anybody else regarding the update on attorney consultation? Okay, hearing none.
wait
Again,
a minute, who was the lawyer?
Are we?
David Kelly.
David Kelly.
Was he related to the Kellys in town?
I
Not to
have
my
no
knowledge.
idea, I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either. No.
Thank you.
Anything else on the attorney consultation? Again, if there's any hands, Bob, Rory, Abby, please let me know, or just shout out if you feel like you're not being heard. I can't see everybody. Unless there's any other discussion, we're gonna move on to new business. I have, do you want to just start with the landscaping? Bridget, did you bring that? Somebody brought that up with the tree?
I did. You had mentioned at one point, having a conversation with Mr. Longo about some trees.
Yep, and
Um,
he's on it. It sounds like it's all set.
okay, and I just didn't know, for the landscaping and Mr. Weitzel, like, I just unfamiliar, is there a bid that happens? Are they going to continue to do that? Does one of us on the board are we gonna be the person who's kind of like the liaison with them because I'd like to see some additional landscaping kind of done, a little bit more mowing in areas, and I don't know if it's appropriate for me or if somebody else does that, what we would do or who's responsible to communicate with landscaping stuff.
Gail, do you have any, I mean, it's just been Michael, it's been Mr. Weitzel for years. So I guess that's something where Abby, if you wanted to talk to him and then bring it back to the board, we could talk about that.
Oh, cool. Perfect. All
Okay.
right. And then the tree, so there were trees that were kind of dangerous out front. But was that just kind of fixing that, or is there open discussion on, like the tree that's right next to the school all tangled in the lines? Is there something that we can maybe have a discussion with that tree?
My understanding, because we talked about it in another meeting, and we asked for Michael Longo to come look at it, and he looked at it, and it sounds like that's all been dealt with. But I can reach out to Michael and ask that question again.
No, I'm not talking about the front of the school, the tree behind the school. Right next to the classroom, that's like right up into the wires. So I didn't know if we were having somebody do trees, if that was one. It would make more sense to replace it with like an apple tree or something, for instance, than something that's going to grow up that high.
Okay, we can talk to Michael and add that. So tree behind the school. Okay, does that sound good?
Yes, thank you.
So let's see, move the update of, so Bob, this is for you, Roblox removed from student computers, unless Bridget, you have something to add to that.
I can speak into that. It was requested to have that blocked. IT has blocked that, and students do not have any access to Roblox.
Great, all right, moving on then, update on hiring.
Beth, I have
We
a
have
question.
a hand from Crystal
Sorry.
first.
Yep, go ahead, Crystal.
So I guess this is probably going to be for Bob. When the student Chromebooks have some kind of feature where if kids are trying to add these things, there'd be some kind of a blocker saying, sorry, you can't add this. Like, I'm just trying to grasp how, I mean, if it was a high school student, I'd be like, oh yeah. But I'm just trying to grasp how these, kids that are all under 11 added this game to their Chromebooks.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak to how the elementary students have been set up. Again, it's just, I'm not even on the job yet, but I can tell you that at Leland and Gray, there were more like filtering systems in place to prevent certain types of searches and certain types of websites. I don't know about app installation. I didn't think that you'd be able to, but maybe students have found workarounds. They're pretty clever sometimes. I think once we get the school year, or once we get the summer underway, Matt Martin, who was previously the IT director for the SU, then has been the Dover principal for the last 7 years, is returning to the SU as the IT director. Maybe it'd be good to have him come and talk a little bit about some of his views around what's happening IT wise and to address some of those questions. I just can't speak specifically to it, Crystal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would appreciate that because, I blocked my kids from having this stuff at home. So when I send them to school and they get access to it, it's pretty frustrating.
Yep. I do know that we've changed a couple of times the system that we use to do the monitoring. And so maybe there's been a gap somewhere. I'm not sure. But Matt would be the one to be able to help us out with that once he's got his feet under him as well in July.
Oh, Matt Martin's coming back as...
Yep. He'll be the IT director for the SU.
Great.
Yeah.
Yep, could you explain to the crowd here that why Roblox is not appropriate, especially in a school setting?
Me personally,
If you
I
know.
have no.
Huh?
My youngest is 18. I have no. And I depend on him. I'm the computer avowed. I have no.
Because I think that's
admitting.
important for this
It
conversation.
is. It's why we have it on the agenda. So that's fine. Yes, and I will give that to Bob Tebow, the incoming superintendent, to explain why Roblox is not appropriate.
To be honest, I'm not familiar with it myself, and I have young kids too. So I'm gonna
I'll
maybe.
speak to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Crystal sounds like she might know more about it.
Thank you, Crystal.
So Roblox is a game that you get to interact with other players, and you may not know who those players are. So that kind of opens your kids up to predators. The recommended age for Roblox is 14 years old. Our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders had it on their Chromebooks.
Okay.
And that wasn't uploaded by teachers. That was uploaded by the students.
I do not know because I'm not at the school all day.
Yeah, I don't either. Okay.
Any other? Did that answer your question? Or
I have a question.
Oh,
I just don't know how to raise my hand.
No, go ahead.
Well, actually, Beth, you have another hand that was up earlier. Sarah E has her hand up before Addie.
Okay, go ahead, Sarah, and then we'll go to you, Addie.
Are Chromebook use mandatory for kids, or can parents opt out for their kids using Chromebooks?
Yeah, I don't know how Windham has done that. I know that at Leland and Gray, every student is assigned one unless the parents tell them that they already have another device. But so much of the schoolwork has been done online, particularly since COVID, through Google Classroom, that it's become kind of a requirement. I can't speak to what the elementary schools, particularly Windham, have done. I don't know. Bridget might be able to say more to that effect.
So all the kids in Windham are assigned a Chromebook, and they use it for different things based on what the teachers want them to use it for. I think in the younger class, they were playing some educational games. The older class, they were doing work. Some would opt to do some of their work on the Chromebook. Some would opt to write things out. But there are security measures in place that IT has put in there. And there's obviously, it's the internet. It's hard to regulate all of it. And so there are more things that can be blocked as needed.
Great, thank you, Bridget.
May I ask a question?
Hold on, can
Addie, yeah, go ahead.
Addie, go ahead.
I guess it's Bridget kind of answered it. Is it safe to assume that this has already been brought up like while we were in school and now it's like not an issue and will be addressed for next year? Measures will be put in place for Chromebooks next year?
I think what I heard Bridget say earlier was that IT had made it so that they could not put it on the Chromebooks anymore.
Yes, and since there's a clean slate kind of staffing, clearly a lot of these, I would group this into security concerns and safety concerns. Will have a very different lens going into it as to who's in charge of what, who does what. And I think the board will be more informed. We'll probably get to that when we talk more about the policy F4 that will be coming up in a little bit in the meeting here. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks.
No, it's all helpful. Is that good, Addie?
Yeah, I'm fine. That's good.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, he's got
it's okay.
No? Okay. Okay, so it sounds like we're moving forward on Roblox and anything else that comes up with IT, and we can just keep working on that. Next is the update on hiring. Do you want to start, Bob Tebow?
Sure. You guys are going to keep me busy on a lot of fronts, I think. So I just want to give a quick update on so for those of you that are new to the conversation. Like I am, I had to kind of go back and view sort of the postings and see the history. So it looks to me, from what I can see, is that on March 31st, there were 2 postings made for anticipated openings. And my assumption is those were anticipated because at the time the budget was not yet approved. Does that sound accurate, Beth?
Yes.
Okay. So there was a posting for a teaching principal and a posting for a multi-grade teacher. At that point, the teaching principal had 0 applicants and the teacher one had 3 applicants at that time. There was another posting made on April 27th, an interim teacher to finish out the school year. That's my assumption. That was for Mr. Parker Jennings' position. There were no applicants for that, which I'm guessing is how Bridget ended up doing what she was doing. Once the budget was approved, this is my assumption. I don't know the dates of that, but on May 22nd, there was a formal posting where the anticipated tag was removed. And that was just for the teaching principal position at that time. And the assumption, I believe, at that point, I think Bill and I had been talking at that time. The assumption was that once hired, that person would then work with the board and with me to hire the teacher and the admin assistant. But that was on May 22nd. We had 3 candidates there. Bill reached out to all 3 and invited them to an interview and shared with them a little bit, not a lot of background, but I think a little bit of background, and share the access to your board meetings videos on BCTV. One of those candidates responded to an interview request. We had a committee put together. Bill and I both served on it. We did interview one candidate, and we were unable to offer that candidate the position. On June 12th, we reposted again for a third time for teaching principal. And then 4 days later on the 16th, June 16th, we posted for the teacher position again. So because of the lateness, we wanted to start collecting resumes for both simultaneously. To date, we have 0 applicants for the teaching principal position, I'm sorry. And we have 2 candidates for the classroom teacher position, neither of which are currently licensed. So that's the current situation right now as of June 20th. It was my hope in talking with Beth and with Bill before he left that we leave these posted. We also added a posting. We traditionally do this on School Spring, which is the primary spot that teachers are looking for jobs, particularly in the Northeast. We added another posting to, I think it's VermontJobs.com, I think was the name of it. I might be getting that wrong though, but it was an online service, and we posted it on there as well. And at that point, and we have no responses from that one at this time either. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. I just real quick before anything, because I was accused at town meeting, Bob, and I, you know, if you still have Bill Anton's contact information, because this came up that I lied at town meeting when I was told that there were multiple candidates. I think at the time, Bill told me 3 for each. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm not gonna.
Bill said the same, I heard that same thing.
Yeah,
that there were
so
3
I
each.
just wanna clarify that. There's transition between Bob and Bill, and I'm not gonna.
Beth,
Yes.
I just would like to help you clarify. So
Okay.
there was candidates, Bill had said there was candidates. I think the confusion there is that people were waiting to be offered the job. I think Abby misspoke when she was speaking, saying they were just waiting for the budget to pass to offer them the job. I think that was the confusion.
Yeah, no interviews were done prior to the one that I was in. I'm not sure, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
There were no interviews done prior to that I'm aware of. And
I have a question.
I could be wrong on the number. I just gave you 0 and 3 on the first anticipated posting. I could be wrong on that. Now I'm trying to go back through and see.
No, it's whatever.
It's fine. Bridget, you have your hand up? Oh, sorry. Kathy Scott had her hand up, then Bridget Corby.
Bob, you say you did not make this gentleman, whoever you interviewed, an offer? Is that You weren't able to make him an offer? Was that a unanimous decision amongst the committee or?
Yeah, because it's a personnel matter, it was not something that we can discuss in open session, but I can just say that we were not able to make an offer to that candidate.
I'd like to follow up on that, Bob.
Yeah, what if the board wants to make an offer?
Well, I would say that the superintendent makes a recommendation to a board to make a hire.
Mm-hmm.
The superintendent is the one whose license is on the line when you have someone working as a principal in an SU for a district. And it's based on the process. I would say that I'm not comfortable moving forward.
But you're one person.
There's a whole committee.
I mean, Bill Anton isn't even here anymore. So you're one.
He was involved in the process as well. He was on the committee.
But you two are two out of how many on the committee?
There was 5 of us, I think.
And what if the
One,
other
two,
3 don't feel that way?
There's 6 of us.
6 of us, okay.
6. What if the other 4 don't feel that way?
Well, the law is clear that the superintendent has to bring the recommendation to the board. So
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that thoroughly, but I don't believe that the law says that the board has to accept that recommendation.
well, there wasn't a recommendation to bring to the board, I guess is the way I'm saying it. So there wasn't a recommendation to accept or not accept at the board level. There was no recommendation made to the board
By whom?
by the superintendent at the time.
I'm sorry, I'm very confused now.
So the law requires a superintendent to make a recommendation for hire to a board.
Right,
The superintendent did not make a recommendation to hire anyone.
okay.
So there wasn't a recommendation made that a board could.
What if the other members of the committee want a recommendation to be made?
I guess, again, because of interviews are happening in a private executive session type setting, they're supposed to be confidential. It's really not something that I can get into either the vote or the reasons. All I can say is that I don't think it's in the best interest of Windham School or the Windham School students to have moved forward with that candidate.
All right, I have two more questions and then I'll shut my face. This person is licensed, a principal, certified teacher principal, is that correct?
I believe they were licensed, yep.
Yep, and they're still licensed. And they have a teacher's license, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I would assume if there was something really untoward, that person's license would be struck.
Kathy, are you saying we don't need the superintendent?
Excuse me?
Are you saying we don't need the superintendent to make these decisions?
No, we have a board. Why, what do we have a school board for if they're not going to be involved in the?
That's why I'm happy we still have a supervisory union.
All right, can we?
You have 2 hands, you have Bridget and Sarah's hands are up again.
Yep, I don't know who was first.
All right, let's just go left to right. Bridget.
So I have a statement and a question. The statement would be just based on that last line of questions. Having just lived through a Band-Aid situation in Windham firsthand, I don't recommend trying to put a Band-Aid on this situation. Just because we don't have someone doesn't mean that we should pressure Bob into making a recommendation he's not comfortable making. It was really hard to work the school year without a full licensed staff. And I think that moving forward, we should be making appropriate decisions so that we have an equitable education for our kids. We should not be just putting someone in a position because we don't have an option, which leads me to my question, which is, Bob, what would the path forward be? It's June 20th. The first day of school is August 30th. What do we do?
So, I mean, my recommendation is we leave the posting up and see how it goes into early July. You guys, what would be your first meeting in July?
That's gonna be the third, typically the third.
18th.
The 18th, okay. So maybe we'd want to do some kind of a special meeting prior to that, just to talk about where we are. I mean, if we have some candidates and we conduct some interviews and there's a recommendation at that time, then you're going to want to have a special meeting to make an appointment to get the person up on board as soon as possible, and then be able to hire a teacher and have an assistant. And then at that time, if it's the second week of July or so, and there isn't any candidates at that point, then I think we need to have a conversation as a board and as a community to talk about what the next steps are.
Doesn't sound like we have any opportunity as a community.
Kathy, just
Hold on, sorry, 1 second. Bridget, did that answer your question, or did you want more?
That answers it for now.
Yeah, okay. Sarah Edelman.
Hey, so that's pretty much where I was going with my question too, is if folks are not hired, what happens day one?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
is it a Band-Aid situation again? Are the doors not open at all? Like,
so yeah, I guess, I mean, to Bridget's point, having, if you could staff the school with substitute teachers, right? Who are not licensed, and you're gonna get what you get. You might, I know, and I apologize coming into this sort of half aware, but obviously this hasn't been my job, so I hope you guys give me a little grace on that. That if the town is already struggling and the community is struggling with unity around the school, staffing it with a couple of substitutes is well-intentioned as they may be, depending on their history and their credentials, could exacerbate an already divided community. Obviously, getting a couple of really high-quality candidates in the meantime would be the ideal. I think the worst solution would be to put a bunch of substitutes in there. And then I guess there's probably something in the middle, which half of you are going to like and half of you aren't going to like. But just to be transparent, you're obligated to educate the kids of Windham. And so at some point you got to figure out how you do that if you don't have teachers. And that's something that I think the board will have to talk through. And I know that's going to be heated. I know there's going to be a lot of feelings,
Yes.
emotions about that. So,
And if I may, only because I'm getting a little bit frustrated here. So I'm sorry. My hand has been raised. There have been quite a few challenges, Bob, that I hope that this is, I apologize, you're going to have such a rocky start, but prior to this, the superintendent was given direction by the board to post for 2 positions, then just makes a decision on his own to post for 1 and hire with you. There's a lot of control and a lot of bias in this supervisory union and the way that the Windham Elementary School is being treated. We've had complaints to the board about special education. We do not, as a board, have anything to do with special education. We have had complaints to the board about staff discipline. We have nothing to do as a board with staff discipline. Now we're trying to work together and get hiring and make things come through. And it's, gee, I don't know if we're going to hire a teacher. We might have to do substitutes. So the willingness to put, wrenches in the mix, scaring staff, hiring the staff that I'm a little confused on still. And I realize we can't talk about that in a public setting, but ironically, the staff that we're losing are hired at the school. It seems like there was a really strong setup for this school to close. And now that it's open, I just hope it's very clear, sir, that the expectation from the board is we are supporting this school. We are supporting these students. We will hire somebody. I don't care if we have to have special meeting after special meeting after special meeting. This is going to happen. We're getting staff the best we can. And we're going to, and to the point that Ms. Scott raised, I was not a part of that committee. So if a teacher is, I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
I'm not talking to you.
I'm almost done.
Come on.
When a teacher is certified, okay, when a teacher is certified, we need to really have more buy-in from why is there a committee if they have no say whatsoever? It's just confusing. So those are things that I just want to make sure that we're aware of moving forward. And that's it. I will shut up.
Is there anybody from the
All
board
right.
on the committee?
Yes, I was on.
So I don't understand the question about bias, Abby, when the
All right,
board
time
members
out.
were
We
part
had
of the
other
committee.
people. Andrew Blanchard.
I have a follow-up question.
Oh, hope, except I'm gonna go with people just real quick who have not spoken yet. So before we go forward, I literally, okay? Let's try and all just do this together. I'm gonna go with, I feel like Andrew Blanchard was back there waiting with his hand up. I see James Lawler has his hand up. Hold on, because before your hand, I now see Crystal Porter, I see Kathy Edgerly, and then Sarah and Bridget. So I'm gonna start after Andrew. It's gonna go to Kathy Edgerly. It's gonna go to James Lawler, who's not spoken yet, and then it's gonna go to Crystal, Sarah, Bridget. I'm going in that order. So, Andrew Blanchard, sorry, you're up.
All right, so I just had a, back to Scott's question, Kathy's. Why would we go and try to hire somebody that the superintendent wouldn't give us a recommendation on? That's question one.
Great question.
I guess I don't understand. Like, I guess I don't understand why we'd hire somebody for our children that higher up people would not recommend, just to fill a spot.
Because it's
Like, I don't does that sound like the best situation for the education of our children?
Nope.
And then to Abby's thing, I don't understand. Nobody has said anything about closing the school just because we don't have teachers. So I don't think we should jump to that conclusion just quite yet. Just because we don't have people filling out applications or whatever. Thank you.
I don't really know what to say. Who did I say was next?
Somebody
Oh, Kathy Edgerly, sorry.
Thank you. In my past life, I have been in situations like this, but they were college situations where they lost the university president in a surprising way. And so what we found though, there were people, they were retired college presidents who were specialists in coming in and being an interim president, which I think even Harvard had Derek Bach come back as an interim president until they found, I think at that time it was probably, Larry Summers. But why can't we look for someone of that nature who they're a specialist in coming in and getting people over this bridge? They're retired, they're not looking for a full-time job, but they have incredible experience and wisdom, and they know how to steer a ship in a rocky sea. So I think it would be worth seeing about the availability of that kind of person. Maybe it's going to cost us a little bit more. Maybe we have to raise some money with the Friends. I don't even know if that's possible to add to a salary. But my guess is there is such a person out there who could help us out.
Yeah, Kathy, if you have any other information to share with the board on that, please feel free. That would be helpful. Thank you, Kathy. Crystal, sorry, Crystal. James Lawler was next.
Yes, on the interview committee, how many people were on the committee for this interview?
There were 6 of us.
And was the recommendation majority, all 6, against recommending hiring this person?
I can't answer that question.
Can anyone? It doesn't matter, like if 5 of the if Bob says no, the other 5 said yes, why have a committee if it's only up to the supervisor? I'm curious, I don't know how it works. Like, was it an even split? Was it, 4-2? How did it work? And who, if it's only up to Bob, why have a committee in the first place?
It wasn't just up to Bob, it was Bob and they each had their job to do as far as, I don't know, Bob, can I say this? One looking at references and one looking at financials. No, the other, it's my understanding, and if I'm wrong here, Bob, please let me know, but no, my opinion was not asked. I mean, that's not true. We had a meeting, but I was not part of the decision making.
So who ultimately made the decision? The committee or just Bob?
The superintendent's office made the decision.
Supervisory union.
So maybe my question is to Bob. Bob, were the other committee members consulted in their recommendations?
Again, it's hard to, I'm trying to walk the line of a committee where people take confidentiality oaths when they participate, to not overshare. I would say in general, when you're hiring for a principal, it's different for a teacher. When you're hiring for a principal position, what you're looking to do and what the way that it works from the legal standpoint is that you can have a committee, you can there's lots of different ways to do it with community forums and interview committees and panels and people reviewing, screening candidates if you have a lot of people to screen through, which, we didn't. There's lots of different setups that you can have. In the end, what has to happen is the committee, it can take a vote, they can be unanimous, they can have consensus, whatever approach that they use to reach their, who their lead candidate is. At that point, it becomes up to the superintendent to make a recommendation to the board regarding that hire as a principal. And so if there's no recommendation to the board, you know what I'm saying? Like it's hard for me to, without getting into a lot of detail. I guess if the board wanted to meet in an executive session to talk about it from the standpoint of hiring and employment, I think the statute cover for executive sessions would cover me explaining it to the board, the other board members, because I believe only Beth was in it. I'm happy to do that if that would make people feel better about the process. But I can't really share any more in an open session of a board.
And neither can I, which is what makes it very difficult. So, sorry, hold on a second. Are you good?
Yeah, I think it's just, for the record, it seems perfectly clear to me that this is a Bob decision, and wherever that.
I think we should have that executive session meeting.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I mean, I know you guys are like, you don't know me, right? And so it's kind of a weird experience to have me roll in. You knew Bill after 7 years of working with him, and you had an understanding, and you developed that knowledge of him. You don't have that with me, and so in the end, I will say this: I wasn't formally the superintendent who made the recommendation or not made the recommendation, but obviously Bill and I consulted. So I would say if the board wants to do an executive session, that is a reasonable thing for them to ask to do, because this is an incredibly big deal. I mean, this is about your staff, and right now you don't have any, and you're trying to trust a guy you don't know to lead you in the right direction for your kids. And I get that that's hard. I honestly do. Let me take a quick moment, just give you a little bit about me, so at least you know a little bit about me. I came to Leland and Gray in '96 as a teacher. I raised my kids. I have 7 children. 2 of them are still in school. 5 of them are in college or out. I taught at Leland and Gray for 10 years, became an assistant principal in Massachusetts for 3 years, was the principal up at Springfield High School for 7 years. And then when Leland and Gray had an opening, when Dr. Dorfman left, I applied and came back to that position where I've been for the last 7 years. When Bill announced that he was leaving, I was interested in pursuing that. But I've been in this supervisory union for 17 of my 29 years as a professional. And so I am committed to the SU. I'm committed to the kids of Windham. I've had them at Leland and Gray. and I've seen them when I was a teacher there. There's at least one person who was in this meeting who was a student of mine. And I've had interactions with some of you guys as parents of high school and middle school students. So I just wanted you to know a little bit about who I am, but I totally get the fact that you don't know me and you're trying to trust me with this decision, which is huge. So that's where it is. But I am happy to go into more detail with the board executive session.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, so we have Sarah Edelman, Bridget Corby, Dan, and then Addie Mae.
All right, so first off, I just want to say that the sound in Zoom land in that room is far better than in the multipurpose room. I can hear everybody in there and it's really good. So moving forward in this room could be beneficial for all of us in Zoom land. Secondly, my question is for Bob. Earlier you were mentioning websites that the job positions have been posted, and I was wondering if Indeed or LinkedIn are possible places to post, or if they're allowed and appropriate. From a parental perspective, having as much reach as possible seems to be the way to go. I just don't know if those two are viable resources for job listings.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is we absolutely we can post on them. The longer answer is that in education circles, they're not big for getting hits. For certain types of positions, like when we posted for the SU-wide equity coordinator position, we'd use LinkedIn and Indeed, and did get some hits, as well as SchoolSpring. But for teaching jobs and for principal jobs, it is tougher to find people in that way. But I'm happy to do it. We can definitely share the postings on those platforms. You guys should also know, like, this is not a Windham issue, right? Low applications for teaching jobs, for administrator jobs. I mean, I was the only applicant for the superintendent job. So it's like, these are tough times right now. And then the timing of it being in late spring, early summer, obviously makes it harder too. So just know that this is not a Windham only issue. You know, we're posting, just Leland and Gray is still posting for teacher jobs, and they're getting 1, maybe 2 applicants. And that's for high school positions. So just know that that's not Windham only, but I will certainly get those things on those other sites as well. It's a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Next is Bridget Corby, then Addie Mae, and then Michael Pelton.
So the Vermont jobs that you mentioned earlier, I believe is actually on Indeed. So I do think the postings are currently on Indeed. The line of questioning that we're having right now is like borderline conspiracy theory. To make it sound like the supervisory union is trying to close Windham by doing certain things. It's an unhealthy conversation to have, and that's not going to benefit our kids in any way. Abby, you referenced the fact that the staff left to go to other positions in the supervisory union. Those are our choices that we made, because working in Windham is a really hard place to work. And the way we're responding to this, instead of acknowledging that we're a really hard place to work and that this is a somewhat toxic environment and it's impacting our kids and we need to fix that in order to fill the staff, we're kind of lashing out at Bob. And it doesn't really make any sense to me, because we're not actually dealing with the issue that we need to deal with. I was on the committee. I can't speak to it either, but I can say that I believe everything was done above board. I don't have all of the information. I wasn't there when Bill and Bob were doing reference checks and things like that, but in no way do I think that Bill and Bob are making decisions to shut our school down because they're denying us access to this qualified candidate. I think that they're making a decision with our best interests. We have a group of kids that need a staff in the fall. We do not have a staff, and we're talking about how the supervisory union isn't supporting us and how it's a slippery slope. Every time we get into a difficult situation, we as a town gather and we argue with each other and we point fingers at each other. There are not a lot of employees out there willing to work, as Bob just said. It's very hard to fill positions. That, along with the fact that you have a very difficult housing market there's no affordable housing. So when you have positions at this pay level, you're not bringing new people into the area. You sort of have to nurture what you have. We are in a difficult situation because we have put ourselves in this difficult situation. And until we're willing to acknowledge that, we are going to live in this difficult situation. We have a group of kids that do not have an education scheduled to start on August 30th. Yes, we can do subs. I don't think that's a good idea at all. We need to come up with a better plan than trying to work around what we're being given right now.
Okay, thank you, Bridget, for Dan.
I just want to echo kind of what Bridget and Andrew both said. We're talking about putting a warm body in place to keep a building open versus what our kids need next year. I got 2 kids in this school. We moved here 6 years ago. I don't want to move. This town is putting me in that predicament. This isn't okay. This is a joke that we're going to question the authority of our new supervisory union. All our kids go there after they leave Windham Elementary School. Why is that okay? But you guys have a problem with what they want to recommend to us for our kids when they're in elementary school. It's a joke. I'm upset and I'm tired of it. We deserve more. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, thank you. Addie Mae.
I guess Bridget kind of covered what I was going to say. And hi, Bob. I'm sorry you're getting into this mess. I was one of your students 20 plus years ago. Welcome. It's frustrating, these conversations, just because as a parent, we went through the second half of this year, watching our kids, try to adjust. And then there's no end in sight for that right now for them. And so to try and put a Band-Aid on a situation that's so big by, subs or things like that, I think beyond just their education, which is huge, there's so much transition going on for these kids. And it doesn't seem necessary. I mean, have always been a big supporter of the school, and it was sad to see Mickey go, but I think that what I'm trying to support is my kids getting a good education, and that's going to be hard to do without good candidates, not just a candidate, but someone who's going to give our kids the proper education. So just like the line of questioning to Bob and to Beth, and it's not productive, and it's not going to get us where we need to go in our already very limited time. That's all.
Thank you, Addie Mae. Michael Pelton.
Yeah, I have to say I reflect a lot of what other parents are saying. I really don't want to see a string of substitutes at our school this year. I think that's not a sustainable option. I think that the supervisory union and the staff at the school did a really good job doing what they had to do to get through the year, but I don't think that's a sustainable way to educate children. I think it's important, given the spot that we're in, I think it's important for us to realize that we've missed a lot of the opportunities that we would have had for teaching principals and teachers. A lot of folks have already signed contracts and probably have a place to go in the fall in terms of the staff. So I think it's important that the supervisory union be a little bit flexible. I think it's important that they're comfortable with the decisions that they make, but I think it's important that they're also willing and able to support potentially incoming newer staff. Last year, we proved that through hard work and diligence, folks can get the job done, and they can learn how to get the job done and be successful at it. Teachers and or a teaching principal that maybe a little bit newer, the supervisory union can support them like they did the staff that finished the year at our school. And they can be successful and they can become good, productive staff members at our school. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
I'm
Jill?
sorry, Beth, before you jump into the last person, let me just respond a little bit to the support piece, because I do want to let people know what will be in place for someone if we find someone. There's, as you guys may know, there's been a lot of shifting around in the SU at the principal level. Obviously, my replacement is going to be new. There'll be a new assistant principal because he was the assistant principal. Wardsboro has a new principal. Dover has a new principal. Marlboro has a new principal. And Townsend and Jamaica are on year 2 of principals. So a lot of new folks in the SU. So Jen and I had worked hard together to develop a plan to make sure that people were supported. And as some of you may know, but if you don't, new principals and a teaching principal does qualify in this regard, are required to have 2 years of mentoring from a state-approved mentor through the VPA. So we are prepared to provide that. I've already been lining up mentors for the other principals in those schools I just mentioned. And in addition to that, which is not something we're required to do, we're contracting with the Vermont Principal Association to do a coaching group, 2 groups actually, one at the secondary level for the 2 new people at Leland and Gray, and one at the elementary level for all the new elementary principals. So they'll receive some in-person one-to-one visits with a coach from the VPA, who's a former elementary principal and elementary principal of the year, and who works at the VPA now, and some group work month by month throughout the school year. So the mentoring and the coaching will be in addition to the supports that Jen and I would be providing to the new principals. So just so you guys know, that was the plan for support for new folks as well.
Bob, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
I am wondering if you might be able to have a conversation with the school board regarding the applicant that you had, and depending on the conversation, do you believe that there would be anything that might help you be more comfortable with the decision that you made with the applicant?
I mean, I have always tried to remain an open mind. I have, I'm literally not on the job yet, so I'm a ton to learn. So I will definitely engage in a conversation with the board about that.
That would be really great. I would encourage you to have an executive session conversation with the board to discuss the applicant.
Thank you, Michael. Crystal Corriveau.
First of all, I mean, I have to say I'm a little shocked that the superintendent and the supervisory union is being attacked by members of the public and a board member. I am one of the parents that had issues surrounding special ed, but it wasn't the special ed department I had issues with. It was the staff at the school not supporting special ed. But I just point blank want to know. I want to know by July what I'm doing with my child. I don't keep it a secret. I want my child in Townsend with my other child that was moved there mid-year because he didn't get support from the staff. So yeah, I want to know by July what's happening with my kid.
Are you talking about, I think we just talked about trying to convene a special meeting. We wouldn't wait till our regular 3rd Tuesday of the month. It would be sooner than that, but I'm thinking it would be like mid-July. Bob, unless you have something else to add.
No, I think that makes sense.
We're gonna go with people who have not spoken yet. John Began, and then Dan, and then Aaron Kehoe.
Is John Began a
Taxpayer.
taxpayer
No.
or a voter?
No, he doesn't have to be.
He doesn't have to be.
Voters should be able to speak.
We're not
first.
making any decisions. We're just talking. There's
I know.
not, there's no decisions being
No, but this
made
is
here.
about our children.
It's a
This is
And John
about our
Began
children.
taught many children
But he
from
doesn't
this
live in
town.
this town.
He's also
He's not a registered voter
retired
in this
professional
town.
teacher. Bob, am I wrong here, or there's just people here in the community and everybody has 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think the board chair gets to determine whether people from off the rolls can speak. It happens in town meetings. It happens in board meetings, annual meetings. Usually, like the perfect example is if you let Lori Garland speak. If you let me speak, I don't live in Windham, so people who are not included as part of the town can be allowed to speak by the board.
Thank you very much. Come on, people. It's just people speaking, for heaven's sake. Go ahead,
He said you
John.
could go.
I'm sorry, was there something said back there?
Yeah, he said she could go.
You said what? Erin can go? Who
Whatever
said
you-
who can
No,
go?
John.
Beth, it's up to you.
No, John, you're here. You taught my children, for heaven's sake. You
Okay.
taught many children in
Okay.
this town. You live right down the bloody road.
So this is for Bob Tebow. Hello, Bob. I just wanted to ask, and you may have already done this, if you could advertise these positions in the local newspaper as well, such as the Rutland Herald and the Eagle Times, the Keene Sentinel, because some people still do read the print editions, and they also have electronic, they have e-versions too. So just saying maybe you could expand the advertising a little?
Yeah, I certainly can consult with the board on that. Those are like the Vermont Jobs one that we did. Those are at a cost. So the board would have to just be in favor of supporting that additional cost. I could research that and get numbers back to Beth, and she could talk to the board about that. But yeah, absolutely, we can get more information on that. I mean, that's how I found my first teaching job, John, was actually my job at Leland and Gray. I found on the Burlington Free Press. So there you go.
Thanks.
Thank you. Dan, and then Erin.
I just had a follow-up question for Bob, if you don't mind. You had said before, worst case scenario would be staff in the school with substitutes. Is there a time limit on how long substitutes can teach throughout a physical year?
Yeah, so it really depends on their credentials. So someone who does not have at least a bachelor's degree can only be in a classroom for 29 consecutive days. You cannot hit 30, or maybe it's 30 consecutive. You can't go past it. It's somewhere in that neighborhood, but you can't go past that in consecutive days. If they have a bachelor's degree in the field, there's a potential to get provisional licensure for a person. And if they have a bachelor's degree in any field, it's possible to get an emergency license through the state for 1 year. The provisionals are usually 2 years, and they're contingent on a person going through a process and getting fully endorsed within that 2 year time frame. An emergency license would really just be an emergency 1 year. We need a body, but they do require that they have at least a bachelor's degree, and they. So I need to learn more about that. I'm going to have to research that more between now and our that special meeting that we have. But there's a possibility. But yeah, the cap on a regular sub, what we call a regular sub, is either 29 or 30 days. It's one of those two.
How would that work in, you might not know this answer, but in a sub situation where it's a teaching principal? You can't have a substitute principal.
Right. So that's a different animal, right? So
the leadership role, if it was substitutes, does it default back down to the supervisory union, or how do you know how that would potentially work?
I don't know. It's a great question. But yeah, there isn't really a substitute principal, and I don't believe you can get an emergency license for a principal either. You can get a provisional if the person's like in an admin program, but they already have to have teaching experience in order to pull that off.
So
Margaret Jennings was a teacher here, and that's how he got his principal license through being here and working through it in that way.
The question more for me, Beth, was who oversees the substitutes as the leadership role of our school besides the board?
I don't know that we were talking about staffing the subs, but
I figure it was something that was discussed, so I just wanted to follow up to fully understand how that would work out.
Discussion right now. Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
I was going to say to the point I made earlier that anybody that gets put in the position there, professional, sub, anything, it all fall on my license if the person is not suitably licensed. So, or if there's challenges. So that's part of the risk inherent with the job. So yeah, it all comes down to the superintendent's license in the end.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, thanks, Bob. Aaron Kehoe.
So Deanna asked some of the questions that I wanted to ask about substitutes in the school. We got the answer. I believe it's 29 or 30 days. And, you know, as a parent, trying to decide on what to do in this situation, where to either A, send my children to another school, pay for it, get acceptance in. Can we have like an actual somewhat timeline so we as parents can make a decision to make sure our kids have an equitable education, whether we want to pay or move or any of that, because that is a big decision. And it's not something that should come in August or probably even July. It is a big decision for all of the parents here. And if they want to send them to mountain school, you got to pay the money. There's no financial aid there. You know, we've always been told by lots of people in this room, we have a choice. And whether we have to pull our money from, you know, our 401ks or whatever to make our kids have a good education without substitutes, I think we as parents owe it to our children to give them an answer before July.
Okay, so Bob, I'm gonna have you talk about this. So I met with Bob, let's see, the Tuesday after the 10th, to have this exact discussion. And again, I just wanna throw out the substitute, that's was not on my radar. So anyway, but yes, go away, take it away, Bob.
So yeah, so this is gonna, I mean, I don't know. I by the way, I just gotta say this, like, I hate that this is my first interaction with you guys as a community. That this is just not the best way to be introduced. But here's the nuts and bolts of it. What it comes down to, this is what you guys want, is the facts. At some point, the board has to make a decision about what they're going to do, right? And so the substitute path I described as sort of the worst case scenario, I think, for everybody, because educationally it's not sound, as has been pointed out by numerous people. The best case scenario is to have candidates and to fill it with qualified people who are going to do a great job and keep the school going. At this point, you guys have, at least for now, have the decision to stay open, and that's the status quo. So that's what we would try to do. The middle ground, the one that's sort of the other solution, is for 1 year. While again, so we want to just back up a little bit. So knowing that the timing of this is tough, knowing that, as somebody mentioned, that people have already signed contracts, so you're getting down to who's left in applying for these jobs, and it's not always a great thing at this time of year to be able to start a full search, in the winter when it really should be done for the teaching principal role, and then to have other positions be filled in the early spring, March is usually when you're hiring teachers for the following year. So like we're way behind that timeline. So the other alternative really is, and there may be other ideas. I'm open to discussion and hearing things, but the other alternative would be to have the board make a 1 year decision that they weren't going to staff it because they can't, let's say, at that particular juncture, and then they wouldn't be voting to close a school at this point. They'd be voting to just provide education for the kids elsewhere. And so under the law, a parent, as you guys probably know, can appeal to the board for a tuition payment to another school. And that's pretty much what would have to happen with every single student in the building. Every single parent would have to individually come to the board with a letter of request with a specific target destination, and the board would have to hear them all individually and make decisions. And then you'd have to figure out what that means for tuition, and Lori would probably come in and help us with that conversation and what's allowable, what's not allowable, all that kind of stuff. If the mountain school is too high of a tuition, can parents pay the difference, or however that kind of plays itself out. And then you would do that for the year, and then people would have an idea of what's happening in mid-July, and then you would start the process again in the winter to post and try to get someone and come back full strength for the following year. So that's sort of the other possibility. I know that it isn't going to make people feel good about it not being open. I assure you, this is not a conspiracy by this SU to try to close a school at all. Just trying to find a path forward. So that is one of the paths that we would find if we didn't have any viable candidates at the time. And somebody mentioned the date. I was going to suggest that the board, if you want to talk about the first, either 10th or 11th of July, to have that special meeting, and then have that conversation. Then you can make a decision that night, or you can have people ruminate on it and come back and make the decision on the 18th, which I think is your meeting, however you want to do it, and then be done. And then you'd have to start hearing the letters come in at that point. So obviously we have some other ideas suggested around postings, which we're certainly going to try with permission from the board for the ones that cost money. And then we'll move forward and see where we end up by the date, if the 11th worked.
Yeah, the 11th is a Tuesday. That's fine with me. Rory, Abby?
I will be traveling. I will not be able to attend that meeting.
Can you attend on Zoom?
If I have Wi-Fi on the plane.
Oh. Otherwise, you said the 10th, Bob?
Yeah, I was just thinking sometime in that early part of that week.
Yeah.
Only because I'm going to be starting
Do the
on
10th, Rory? I'll be 6 hours ahead. But I can figure something out, or could we do it the week? I don't know. I'll be back the 11th. Like 11 o'clock at night.
So what
could we
about
do it
the 12th? Bob, Abby, anybody, the 12th, the 13th?
That's fine for me.
12th, Bob?
Yep, any of those times work for me.
All right, let's go with the 12th. July 12th is a Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We'll start there. Great. Okay. So.
When will we get the update from that meeting, Beth? Is that the 18th? Is that when you said the next board meeting is? I'm sorry.
It's the 18th, yes.
Thank you.
So the 12th we'll have the meeting, and then, Bob, is there any reason we can't, obviously, like you said, parents are gonna know, and I get it. I have 3 of them, been there, done it, I understand. This is
Are we able
stressful.
to have a
Time
quick
out, 1
executive
second.
session?
Hold on, Abby, 1 second. Totally understand how stressful this is, okay? And I've been on the board for 16 years, and it hasn't been until these last 4 that this has been so difficult. And so some of you who have been coming here over the years who have been supportive, and those of you who have not been, try and understand how hard this is for me, and to have just, gosh, some of the really horrible things, the emails that I get regularly, that I get from members of the community who've called the Secretary of State, or the attorney, the General Attorney, the Attorney General, who called the Secretary of Education, who called the VSBA, all citing me and all the things that I have done wrong. And I'm so grateful that you care so much about your kids. It's fantastic, but don't think for 1 minute that I have been feeling the same exact way for years. This is your decision, not mine. And we've been working damn hard, and nobody's attacking Bob Tebow. This has just been a really heartfelt group of people who just really care, and we're trying to make the best decision we can. And some of the language people use, attacking, blatantly false information, it's not good. I want to go back to what Bridget Corby said. This is not an us or them. This is every single one of us plays a part in this. Every single one of us in this room plays a part. You moved to town because you love the school, you moved to town because you love the town, whatever. We're all here for a common reason, and now we're just trying to figure this out. Go ahead, Abby.
So, Bob, I would like to apologize that my intensity, as you can tell, this is a very passionate community. I am also a parent that is in the same, realm of concern. And it was not conspiracy theory of highlighting those things. It was, these are areas that we have had people voicing strong concern. And we are pleading clearly for support from the supervisory union to address these challenges. And we're willing to do what we can. So that would have been a much better way of saying it, and I'm sorry. But it's sensitive, right? We're all sensitive. And I would like to request, just if we could briefly have an executive session before moving on to the F3 and F4 policies, so we can wrap up this evening.
So I move for an executive session.
Oh, mama. Hold on, Abby, I have two hands up here. Bridget Blanchard and then Sue Puri.
Can we just talk about the lunch program and the art and music, where we stand with that for next year with the funding and what's gonna be available to the kids?
I think Bridget has some insight on the art funding, which was through grants.
So right now, music would be, if I haven't talked to Sally or Kate, I would assume that Sally would plan on coming back, but that is volunteer. Currently, we have an art teacher that's willing to work, but we don't have the funding for it. I know there's a few folks in the audience that have looked into grants for us, but so Casey, our art teacher, said she'll keep that time slot open for us if we can find the funding, but we don't have an art program. And the other one that we'll probably be looking for grants for is any type of counseling funding, because we were at 8 hours a week with Miss Elizabeth and we went down to 3 hours a week because the grant that we were using for that is not available anymore. So if there's any other programs you had questions on, I think those were the ones that you had asked about.
Yep, that's it.
There's another hand up, Sue.
I'm sorry you're so upset.
Maybe I'm all good. Don't worry about me.
Maybe there should be a term to how long a person serves on the school board. But why is it that your two family members, your mother and your brother, question the superintendent?
Sue, Mom, please don't. Mom, don't. This is exactly what Sue wants. Don't do it. We're moving on. That's not even a question to answer. It was an absolute waste of time. Go ahead. Sorry, Abby, continue with what you were saying.
I'd like to make a motion to move to executive session.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
Any discussion?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're moving into executive session. We're back in session. Lori, did you want to address the meeting?
Yes, so after the executive session, what we discussed in the executive session is our goal is to really amp up the hiring process. We're going to just try to get the word out there and do the best that we can to get somebody to fill the positions so that we can avoid worst case scenario and any middle ground. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to do our best to get some teachers in there, some staff into the school that'll be good for our kids.
Sticking with what we've already discussed, our meeting July, what day did we say, the 13th or the 12th?
12th.
And
12th.
And moving from there. That has not changed. That's all the same.
I'm just going to say that nobody doubted that was the goal. But as parents, we want to know by July where our kids are going. Making us wait until August when school starts on August 30th is unacceptable. And I know myself as a parent, I'm not going to tolerate it.
No, that's why we have the meeting set for July 12th. We'll make our decision then, and then if our next meeting is the 18th, our next regular meeting would be the 18th. It wouldn't go past that if it didn't get out before then. So great, thank you, Crystal. Bridget Corby.
That was sort of my question too, is will you set a deadline for when you'll decide if you're going to tuition out or start with subs? And so you're saying that the July, you said 12th meeting?
We'll have our meeting and make our decision, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep, Sarah Edelman.
Well, thank you for getting a time frame for as best as you can. I also just would like to add that even though I do have a kid in the school, I would much rather you all make a decision for a person who's qualified for the job or you feel like they're the best fit versus just settling to get a body in there. So that's my opinion.
Absolutely. Anybody else in the audience? Hearing none, okay. Moving on to, policy, warning of policy F3 and F4. Policy F3 is fire and emergency preparedness drills. Policy F4 is access control and visitor management. Have, Rory, and Abby, have you read over the fire and emergency?
I have not. Yes.
Did you get it, Rory?
I didn't get anything specifically about that. Was it an email or is it on a website?
There were packets sent out, but there's just been so many, there's been so much correspondence, so, and you're new here, and so it's fine. So I'm gonna, make a motion to warn that we will, adopt F3 fire and emergency preparedness drills. Can I get a second?
A second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, and Rory, you can just abstain if you prefer until you get it. Okay? Abby, did you aye?
Aye.
Okay, great,
Yes.
all right, that's done. F4, access control and visitor management. This speaks to the concern that Crystal Corriveau had and the discussion that we had where Bridget talked about this has been something that we've been discussing with the staff, and then we'll move forward regarding the door with Greg Frost and if we need to upgrade the locking system. So I make a motion to adopt access control and visitor management F4. Can I get a second?
A second.
I have a question.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Yep, Erin Kehoe.
On number 2, where it says all school site and district office exterior doors are locked during the day with an optional to leave a door open. Are you going with that or not going with that one?
I think we're trying really hard not, because obviously it upset people.
Okay, so
no.
number 2A would not be included.
So if you did not want to include the option, then you would strike A from your policy that you were warning. That's correct.
So tonight we're just approving that we're going to do a policy, but that is not the policy, correct?
No, you're actually warning this particular policy.
So sure, okay, so I guess I'll amend that then. So we're adopting access control and visitor management, F4, but without option 2A. Does that sound okay?
If that's your intent, then that sounds great.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Are you good with that, Erin? Yep. All those in favor say aye. Aye, so we're gonna strike 2A. Great, motion passes. Is there anything else? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn at 8:06 p.m.
I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.